There is a silent battle happening within you every single day. Not outside, not in the world, but inside your own mind. Most people spend their entire lives chasing peace in the outside world. They believe that once things finally go their way, they will feel calm, satisfied, and complete. They wait for the right moment, when they have more money, better relationships, fewer problems, or more control over their circumstances. But even when they achieve these things, the peace they expected never truly lasts. It fades quickly, replaced by new worries, new desires, and new fears. This is because they are searching in the wrong place. Peace is not something that can be found in external conditions. The outside world is constantly changing, unpredictable, and beyond your full control. If your peace depends on something that is always changing, then your peace will also be unstable. One moment you feel calm, and the next moment something small disturbs you. A single comment, a minor inconvenience, or an unexpected situation can completely shift your emotional state. This is the reality of relying on the external for inner stability. What most people fail to understand is that two individuals can face the exact same situation, yet experience it in completely different ways. One person may feel stressed, angry, and overwhelmed, while the other remains calm, composed, and clear. The difference is not the situation itself, it is the state of their mind. This shows that peace is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you process and respond to what happens. When your mind is not under your control, it reacts automatically. It is easily influenced by fear, past experiences, and unconscious habits. It jumps to conclusions, creates negative stories, and magnifies problems that may not even be as serious as they appear. In this state, even a peaceful environment cannot give you peace because your mind itself is restless. You carry chaos within you, and wherever you go, that chaos follows. On the other hand, when your mind is trained and disciplined, something powerful happens. You begin to develop a sense of inner stability that is not dependent on external conditions. Challenges still arise. People still behave in unexpected ways, and life still presents difficulties, but your response becomes different. You no longer react impulsively. You no longer allow every small thing to disturb your inner state. Instead, you observe, you understand, and you respond with awareness. This inner control creates a form of peace that is stable and lasting. It does not disappear when things go wrong, because it was never dependent on things going right. It comes from within, from your ability to manage your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. It is a quiet strength that allows you to remain grounded, even when everything around you feels uncertain. Many people misunderstand this idea. They think that finding peace within means ignoring the outside world or becoming indifferent to life. But that is not the case. You still engage with life, you still care, and you still take action. The difference is that you are no longer controlled by what happens around you. You act from a place of clarity instead of emotional chaos. When you shift your focus from controlling the outside to understanding the inside, your entire experience of life begins to change. You stop chasing temporary solutions and start building something deeper. You begin to realize that peace was never something you needed to find in the world. It was something you needed to cultivate within your own mind. An uncontrolled mind is one of the greatest sources of human suffering, yet most people are not even aware that their mind is out of control. They believe they are thinking freely, making conscious choices, and reacting naturally to life. But if they observe closely, they will notice a different reality. Their thoughts arise automatically, their emotions shift without warning, and their reactions often happen before they even have a chance to think. This is not control, this is conditioning. When the mind is undisciplined, it constantly moves from one thought to another without direction. It jumps into the past, replaying old mistakes, regrets, and painful memories. It travels into the future, creating anxiety about things that have not even happened yet. In both cases, the mind pulls you away from the present moment and fills your inner world with noise. Even when nothing is wrong in your environment, your mind creates problems that feel real. This is how suffering begins, not from the situation itself, but from the way the mind interprets it. A small inconvenience becomes a major frustration. A delay becomes anger. A misunderstanding becomes emotional pain. The mind exaggerates, distorts, and adds meaning where it may not even exist. Instead of seeing things as they are, you see them through the lens of your fears, insecurities, and past experiences. An uncontrolled mind is also highly reactive. It does not pause, it does not question. It simply responds based on habit. If someone says something you don't like, your mind immediately reacts with anger or defensiveness. If something doesn't go your way, frustration appears instantly. These reactions feel automatic because they are. They have been practiced over time, repeated, so often that they have become your default way of responding to life. The more you react without awareness, the stronger these patterns become. Over time, they shape your personality, your relationships, and your overall experience of life. You begin to believe that this is just who you are, when in reality, it is simply the result of an untrained mind repeating the same patterns again and again. Another way the uncontrolled mind creates suffering is through overthinking. It constantly analyzes, questions, and worries, even when there is no clear solution. It tries to solve problems that don't exist yet and replace conversations that are already over. This endless thinking drains your energy and creates a sense of heaviness within you. You feel mentally exhausted, even if you have done nothing physically demanding. In this state, peace becomes impossible. Even if you sit in a quiet place, your mind is still loud. Even if everything around you is calm, your inner world is restless. You may try to escape this by distracting yourself through entertainment, social media, or constant activity. But the moment you're alone with your thoughts, the noise returns. The truth is, an uncontrolled mind does not need a real problem to suffer. It can create its own suffering. It can turn neutral situations into negative ones and amplify small issues into something much bigger. This is why two people can experience the same event, yet one suffers deeply, while the other remains unaffected. The difference lies in the level of control they have over their mind. When you begin to recognize this, you start to see that the real problem is not the world around you, but the way your mind operates. And once you see this clearly, you also begin to understand that if the mind can create suffering, it can also be trained to reduce it. One of the most important realizations a person can have is this: your thoughts are not reality. They feel real, they sound convincing, and they often carry strong emotions, but they are not facts. They are simply mental constructions, interpretations shaped by your past experiences, your beliefs, your fears, and your conditioning. Yet most people live as if every thought that appears in their mind is true, and this is where much of their suffering begins. From a very young age, the mind starts collecting information. Every experience, every interaction, every success and failure leaves an impression. Over time, these impressions form patterns, and these patterns begin to influence how you see the world. When something happens, your mind does not see it objectively. It immediately filters it through these patterns and creates a story. That story becomes your thought. For example, if someone does not respond to your message, one mind may think they are busy, it's not a big deal. Another mind may think, they are ignoring me. Maybe I did something wrong. The situation is the same, but the interpretation is different. The second interpretation creates discomfort, doubt, and unnecessary emotional pain. But the person experiencing it often believes it completely, as if it is the only possible truth. This is how thoughts gain power. Not because they are accurate, but because you believe them without questioning. The mind presents them so quickly and so naturally that you don't stop to examine them. You simply accept them and react accordingly. In doing so, you give your thoughts control over your emotions and your behavior. Many thoughts are repetitive and unconscious. They are not new or original. They are echoes of the past. Old fears, past failures, and previous conditioning continue to influence your present thinking. You may think you are responding to the current moment, but often you are reacting based on something that has already happened long ago. This is why people remain stuck in the same emotional cycles. The thoughts may change slightly, but the underlying pattern remains the same. When you begin to understand that thoughts are not facts, a shift starts to happen. You create a small space between yourself and your thoughts. Instead of being completely absorbed in them, you begin to observe them. You start to notice how quickly they arise, how easily they change, and how often they repeat. This awareness weakens their grip on you. You also begin to question them. Instead of immediately believing a thought, you pause and ask, is this really true? Or is there another way to see this? This simple act of questioning breaks the automatic cycle of belief and reaction. It allows you to step out of the illusion that your thoughts are always correct. As this awareness grows, you become less reactive. Negative thoughts may still appear, but they no longer control you in the same way. You see them as temporary mental events rather than absolute truths. This reduces their emotional impact and gives you the freedom to choose how you respond. You start to realize that just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean you have to follow it. You don't have to engage with every worry, every fear, or every negative assumption. You can let thoughts come and go without attaching yourself to them. This understanding brings a sense of lightness. The mind becomes less heavy, less overwhelming. You are no longer trapped in every story your mind creates. Instead, you stand outside of it, observing with clarity. And in that clarity, you begin to experience a different kind of freedom, one that comes from knowing that your thoughts do not define your reality, unless you allow them to. The first step toward gaining control over your mind is not force, resistance, or suppression. It is observation. Most people try to control their thoughts by pushing them away or replacing them with positive ones, but this approach often creates more tension. The mind does not respond well to force. The more you try to suppress a thought, the stronger it tends to return. True control begins in a different way. It begins by simply observing what is happening within you. Observation means becoming aware of your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without immediately getting involved in them. It is the ability to watch your inner experience, as if you are an outside observer. Instead of being lost in your thoughts, you start to notice them. Instead of reacting instantly to your emotions, you become aware that they are present. This may sound simple, but it is a powerful shift. For most of your life, you have been identified with your mind. When a thought appears, you believe it. When an emotion arises, you become it. There is no distance between you and what you experience internally. Observation creates that distance. When you observe your mind, you begin to see things more clearly. You notice how thoughts come and go on their own. You see how one thought leads to another, forming a chain that can quickly pull you into overthinking. You recognize patterns recurring worries, repeated fears, familiar reactions. What once felt like a solid, unchangeable reality now begins to look like a series of passing events. This awareness changes your relationship with your mind. Instead of being controlled by it, you start to understand it. You realize that not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion requires a reaction. Some things can simply be noticed and allowed to pass. For example, when anger arises, the usual response is immediate reaction. Words are spoken, actions are taken, and often regret follows. But when you are observing, something different happens. You feel the anger, but at the same time, you are aware of it. You can say to yourself, anger is present. This small moment of awareness creates space. In that space, you are no longer completely controlled by the emotion. You have a choice. The same applies to fear, anxiety, and negative thinking. Instead of being consumed by them, you watch them. You notice how they affect your body, your breathing, your thoughts. This observation weakens their intensity. What you observe with awareness begins to lose its power over you. Observation also brings you back to the present moment. The mind often lives in the past or the future, but awareness anchors you in what is happening now. When you observe your thoughts, you are no longer lost in them. You are here, witnessing them. This presence is where clarity begins. At first, this practice may feel difficult. The mind is used to constant activity, constant engagement. It will try to pull you back into old patterns of thinking and reacting. You may forget to observe and find yourself caught in thoughts again. This is natural. The key is not to become frustrated, but to gently return to observation each time you remember. Over time, this practice strengthens. The gap between thought and reaction becomes wider. You become less impulsive, less reactive, and more aware. Situations that once triggered strong emotional responses begin to feel different. You still experience thoughts and emotions, but they no longer control your actions in the same way. Through observation, you develop a deeper understanding of your inner world. You see the patterns that shape your behavior, the habits that influence your reactions, and the thoughts that create your emotional state. This understanding is the foundation of true control. Without it, any attempt to control the mind is temporary and superficial. Observation does not eliminate thoughts or emotions, but it transforms your relationship with them. Instead of being trapped inside your mind, you stand outside of it, watching with clarity and calmness. And in that space of awareness, you begin to experience a sense of freedom that was not possible before. Control of the mind is often misunderstood. Many people believe that to control the mind means to suppress thoughts, ignore emotions, or force themselves into a constant state of positivity. They try to push away anything that feels uncomfortable and replace it with something that appears better. But this approach does not create true control. It creates inner conflict. The more you try to suppress what you feel, the more resistance you build within yourself. Suppression is not strength. It is avoidance. When you suppress an emotion, it does not disappear. It simply moves beneath the surface, where it continues to influence your thoughts and behavior in subtle ways. You may appear calm on the outside, but internally, there is tension. Over time, this tension builds up and eventually finds a way to express itself, often in unexpected reactions, sudden anger, or emotional exhaustion. True control is not about denying what you feel. It is about understanding it. It is about allowing thoughts and emotions to arise without immediately reacting to them. This requires discipline, not force. Discipline means you are aware of what is happening within you, and you choose how to respond instead of acting automatically. When an emotion arises, the first step is to acknowledge it, not to judge it, not to label it as good or bad, but simply to recognize that it is there. If you feel anger, you admit that anger is present. If you feel fear, you accept that fear exists in that moment. This acknowledgement creates honesty within yourself. There is no resistance, no denial, just awareness. From this place of awareness, you begin to observe the emotion more closely. You notice how it feels in your body, how it affects your breathing, and what kind of thoughts it produces. Instead of being overwhelmed by it, you become curious about it. This curiosity reduces the intensity of the emotion. It no longer feels like something that is controlling you, but something you are witnessing. Discipline comes into play when you choose not to act on every impulse the emotion creates. For example, anger may push you to speak harshly or react immediately. But with awareness, you pause. You recognize the impulse, but you do not follow it. This pause is where control exists. It is the moment where you break the automatic pattern and choose a different response. This does not mean you ignore the emotion or pretend it is not there. It means you give yourself time to respond in a way that is thoughtful rather than reactive. You may still address the situation, express your feelings, or take action, but it comes from a place of clarity, not emotional chaos. Many people believe that being in control means always being calm or never experiencing negative emotions. But this is unrealistic. Emotions are a natural part of being human. Control is not about eliminating them. It is about not being dominated by them. You can feel anger without becoming destructive. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can feel sadness without losing yourself in it. This kind of control requires consistent practice. It is not something that happens instantly. The mind has been conditioned over many years to react in certain ways, and changing these patterns takes time. There will be moments when you lose awareness and react impulsively. But each time you become aware again, you strengthen your ability to respond differently in the future. As this discipline develops, you begin to experience a sense of inner balance. Emotions still come and go, but they do not shake you in the same way. You are no longer at the mercy of every thought or feeling that arises. Instead, you have the ability to remain steady, to choose your actions, and to maintain a sense of control even in challenging situations. This is the difference between suppression and discipline. Suppression hides what is happening inside you, while discipline brings clarity to it. Suppression creates pressure, while discipline creates stability. And through this stability, you begin to experience a deeper sense of control over your mind. A calm mind is not something that appears suddenly or by accident. It is the result of consistent awareness, discipline, and understanding. When the mind is calm, it does not mean that life has become free of challenges or that everything is going perfectly. It means that regardless of what is happening externally, there is a sense of stability within you that remains undisturbed. Most people experience life through a restless mind. Their thoughts are constantly moving, reacting, judging, comparing, and worrying. This constant activity creates inner noise. Even in moments of silence, the mind continues to speak. It replays past events, imagines future scenarios, and creates unnecessary tension. In this state, peace feels distant because the mind itself is unsettled. When the mind becomes calm, this inner noise begins to fade. Thoughts may still arise, but they are less frequent and less intense. They no longer pull you in every direction. Instead of being carried away by each thought, you remain grounded. There is space between your awareness and your thinking, and in that space, clarity begins to emerge. Clarity is one of the greatest benefits of a calm mind. When the mind is agitated, it distorts reality. Small issues appear larger than they are, and decisions are made based on impulse rather than understanding. But when the mind is calm, you begin to see things as they truly are. You are able to respond to situations with wisdom rather than reaction. This changes the way you handle challenges, relationships, and even your own emotions. A calm mind also reduces unnecessary suffering. Many of the struggles people face are not caused by the situation itself, but by the way they think about it. Overthinking, negative assumptions, and constant worry create layers of suffering that go beyond the actual problem. When the mind is calm, these patterns lose their strength. You no longer add extra weight to situations. You deal with what is real, not with what your mind imagines. This state of calmness also brings emotional balance. You are not easily shaken by external events. Praise does not make you overly attached, and criticism does not break you. Success does not lead to arrogance, and failure does not lead to despair. There is a steady presence within you that remains consistent, regardless of what happens around you. This balance allows you to move through life with greater ease. Another important aspect of a calm mind is the ability to stay present. When the mind is restless, it is rarely in the present moment. It is either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. But a calm mind naturally returns to the present. You become more aware of what is happening right now rather than being lost in what has already happened or what might happen. This presence brings a quiet sense of peace that is not dependent on circumstances. As your mind becomes calmer, your reactions begin to change. Situations that once triggered strong emotional responses no longer affect you in the same way. You pause more, react less, and respond with intention. This not only improves your inner experience, but also your interactions with others. You become more patient, more understanding, and less reactive. This inner calmness influences every area of your life. Your decisions become clearer, your relationships become healthier, and your overall sense of well-being improves. You are no longer constantly searching for peace because you are carrying it within you. A calm mind does not mean a passive life. It does not make you weak or indifferent. In fact, it gives you strength, the strength to remain steady in difficult moments, to think clearly under pressure, and to act with purpose instead of impulse. It allows you to face life fully without being overwhelmed by it. Over time, this calmness becomes your natural state. It is no longer something you try to achieve. It becomes part of who you are. And as this state deepens, you begin to experience life differently, not as a constant struggle, but as something you can move through with awareness, stability, and a quiet sense of peace that remains within you. In the end, everything comes back to one simple truth. The state of your life is deeply connected to the state of your mind. You can spend years trying to change the outside world, trying to make everything perfect, trying to avoid discomfort. But without control over your mind, peace will always remain temporary. The moment you begin to turn inward, to observe, to understand, and to discipline your mind, something shifts. You stop being a prisoner of your thoughts and emotions. You stop reacting blindly to every situation. Instead, you begin to move with awareness, with intention, and with clarity. Peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you carry. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments of difficulty. But they will not shake you in the same way because you are no longer dependent on circumstances to feel stable. You have built that stability within yourself. So train your mind not through force, but through awareness. Discipline your reactions, not by suppression, but by understanding. And return again and again to the present moment where true peace exists. Because when your mind is steady, your world becomes steady. And when you finally learn to control your mind, you will realize that peace was never far away. It was always waiting for you to discover it within.